Alrighty. I think we're on.
I think we are on too. And there's the chat. Woohoo. I can see it on my phone. We are not on TikTok today, guys, which means we get to be a little bit more honest and a little bit less discreet with some of the things we have to say. I don't have to pull my punches quite as much. So there's that. And I'm the problem today, guys. I came up with the topic. And the topic today is, dun dun dun, is it really weaponized incompetence, or is she just gaslighting you?
It's quite the subject.
I'm going to explain to you what I explained to Kurtis not 5 minutes ago so that we're all on the same page. I watched a video where a woman sent her husband to the store for ingredients for fajitas. And she just said fajitas, ingredients for fajitas. She wasn't specific. She's like, well, he should know what constitutes fajitas. And I'm thinking to myself, well, living where I live, I almost always have at least some of what I need to make a meal, and not always everything. So if I'm sending someone to the store, I send Mr. Squirrely to the store with pictures, especially if I have a preference over a certain brand or something. But you need to be as specific as possible because they can't read your mind. I send myself to the store with detailed lists because I have made the mistake of saying, I don't need to write that down. And then I get there and promptly forget everything. And get distracted by stuff because RHEBs are huge. And so all the comments in there are talking about, well, he should have known this and it's weaponized incompetence because he didn't do this and he should have known. And I started thinking about it. I was like, well, is it really his weaponized incompetence or is it her weaponized incompetence? She failed to communicate correctly. And rather than own that, she is convincing him or accusing him of what she did, which is weaponized incompetence, and then gaslighting him into thinking it's his fault. And then I thought to myself, how many times do we see this in just general discourse? Not just with weaponized incompetence, but with the whole mental load shit and all the other crap, the made-up language that women make up to make themselves feel better, about how women failed to communicate correctly, or they failed to express what was really going on, or they had a failure or a breakdown of something within themselves. And then rather than admit that the fault lies with them, they accuse the other partner of being the one at fault or of, not doing X, Y, Z, and then gaslight them into thinking that they're the ones with the problem. And I start looking at all of these instances of the mental load, and the weaponized incompetence is the big one. And well, he should just know. And there's all these videos there are all these comments in the video on the fajita thing about, well, he should just know. He should just know this. And I'm like, again, I don't know. If my husband is sending me to the store for something and he's not specific, like, can you imagine sending me to the oil aisle?
Or how about the hardware store for that matter?
Exactly. We need screws. Okay, or this would be, we need not ingredients. We need supplies to build a deck. That's it. I'm like, okay.
What's the size of the deck?
What's the size of the deck? Are we doing just, what are we anchoring it with? Are we using an auger to drill holes to put concrete supports, or are we just sticking the posts in the ground?
Or are you tamping down like those piers? I mean, you don't know.
There's so many different ways you could do that. Can you imagine sending a woman to the store saying, get the things we need to build a deck, or get the things we need to maintenance your car? Well, what part of the car is being maintained? Are we doing engine work? Are we doing detail work? Are we doing cosmetic work? Are we doing engine work? Are we doing transmission work? Because transmission work is different from just general maintenance. Are we changing your oil? Are we flushing out your systems? Are we flushing out there's all these different things. Can you imagine?
Are we doing the coolant? Are we doing the transmission? Are we doing the brake lines? Are we bleeding the brake lines? Yeah.
Exactly. And so, and sometimes you could go to the store, and my husband mentioned the other day that he's like, I really need to put washer fluid in my cars because he ran out of washer fluid. So I went to the store and I saw some on sale and I bought it. Turns out we already had 3. But I thought about it and we already had it. So I mean, like, how often has that happened? Or my favorite is, and I am so guilty of this, I will forget because I have ADD. I will forget that we have an ingredient, and that is how we end up with 8 bottles of ranch and 16 things of pumpkin spice seasoning, and all these things because we forget that we have them. So if you're going to the store with a list, the list has to be detailed enough,
right,
to accomplish the goal. And
right.
if the list isn't detailed enough, then it is not the fault of the person who interpreted the list. It is the fault of the person who wrote the list.
And Steve makes an excellent point. Woman to man, cars need maintenance. Yeah, and what specifics? What specific maintenance do they need? And the devil's always going to be in the details, right? So I think it's kind of interesting that we talk about this particular subject, especially in light of what happened just this week to me. So for those of you that don't know, my spouse moved out 2 weeks ago, and she's living over in the adjacent city in the school district, and we're going through a thing where I don't know where it's going to end up. But she tells me that she's filled with anxiety living in the same house with me. Okay, I don't do enough is what I'm being told. Okay, so I somehow get the kids fed. I somehow get like dishes done, laundry done. There's a lot of stuff that I've got going on, that I'm also working, doing legislative work, doing lobbying work, doing mayor work, doing a whole bunch of stuff, and working on legal cases all at the same time. And I'm just trying to stay afloat. And she's got all this anxiety ridden, like, boom. Okay. Everyone's like, yeah, that's kind of like the norm, right? But she's working a full-time job. She drives 45 minutes one way, drives 45 minutes the other way. Okay, no problem. That means she's spending an hour and a half on the road every single day. Okay, so then it's like, okay, but when you have just those facts, it's like, why aren't you doing more at the house, Kurtis? You're available more, blah, 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 blah. And I'm kind of like, as far as I know, I'm doing my part. And then after she's been out, and I start to deep clean the house. I deep cleaned it on Tuesday. And I'm starting to realize, wake up this morning and I go, everything that I had done Tuesday has been undone. And I got the same amount of workload and more because of the cats. Wait a minute. We have 8 cats. And those cats weren't my decision. Those cats were not mine. It was made expressly clear that she would be the one that cleans litter boxes. She would be the one responsible for feeding them. She would be responsible for the care, cleanup, and all of that. And I'm realizing that she is now skirted out on all of it because she's in a place where she can't have pets. No responsibility whatsoever. So it's kind of like, what is going on here? Am I the one that, that's why I couldn't put 2 and 2 together. And then all of a sudden you omit that information. And if I'd known that information as a variable at the beginning, there's no way in hell I would have said yes to the cats. None. Not even 1 or 2, maybe, but now 8. What? So now I'm the one holding the bag. I'm the one putting in all the work. I'm the one that's got to arrange for, wait a minute, what's going to happen with these cats? And mind you, she's living in the adjacent city 5 minutes away. And she's making demands on me as far as what cats we're going to keep and what cats we're going to get rid of.
Well, she's not doing any of the care.
While she's not doing any of the care. And mind you, the animals are probably, and I took care of the dogs. The dogs are 100% mine. Mind you, the one dog is not mine, but I still do 100% of the care when it comes to the dogs. I'm the one that potties them. I'm the one that feeds and waters them. I don't understand the amount of shedding that happens by the cats. There's this one particular cat that she's very fond of that plucks his matted fur out every single day. And it's like, you see clumps of fur everywhere. And it's like, how do you have this much fur? And it's like, and now there's one particular cat, and I can't figure out which one is peeing on crap. And we know how cat urine is.
Yeah.
So it, like, when you realize and put all of that into perspective, it's like, am I really that crazy, or am I really that bad of a guy? And then to be told I'm not doing my part.
Well, I think
I'm not picking up what I said I wasn't going to pick up.
Well, I think that's so I've had this conversation before with women who they're saying, well, they're not doing their fair share. And I tried using math, which was my first problem, because math and women a lot of the times no mixy. And because we had that whole girl math scenario. And I want to preface this by saying I'm bad at math too. Like, I am horrible at math, but I can use addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. And if you show me the numbers, I can typically follow along. And I know enough to balance my checkbook and all of the stuff, calculate interest and whatnot. And apparently that is more than the average woman, because I was saying, okay, the proportion of chores should be proportionate to, because there's two types of labor that run a household. There's financial contribution and domestic contribution. Both are needed to run a household. So your contribution to the domestic chore should be proportionate to who's bringing in what total of the finance. If you're out of the house working all day and you're the only one working, well, then it makes sense that the spouse that is not working, male or female, would be the one that takes up the majority of the domestic chores, barring ones that can't be done.
Absolutely.
My husband does almost nothing. I stay at home, other than the children, because I'm trying to teach them responsibility. They do their own laundry and they have their own chores. But 99.9% of the housework is my responsibility. So if my house is messy, the only person I can be angry at is me, and occasionally my children for leaving spilled milk out. But if I run out of clothes, that's my fault. If he runs out of clothes, that's my fault. And he has every right to jump down my throat, because he does 100% of the financial labor for the whole house. Well, recently he got a new job, and he's working more, and he doesn't have the time off to do like the yard. So he said, I'm going to need help with the yard. I said, okay, I am more than willing to help you do the yard, but we need to get yard equipment that I can actually use. We have an ancient pull start thing. And I used to mow the yard when I was a kid. That was my outside. That was my job. So I know how the lawnmower works. I can take it apart. I can put it back together. And I'm not a weak woman, but I cannot get this. You have to like beat this thing into submission, and I'm not strong enough. And I was like, I will gladly do the yard work. I just have to have equipment that actually works.
Right.
Well, he's failed to get me the equipment that I actually work. And I flat out said, I will go and buy the lawnmower. It's not like I haven't, I don't know what I'm looking for. He goes, no, I'll do it. Well, he hasn't done it yet. So our yard, the weeds are so high that the dogs disappeared. I keep yelling, like, Jurassic Park, don't go into the high grass. And the other day he was complaining. He goes, well, you haven't been helping me. I was like, we have a lawnmower I can't use, and a weed eater that is so imbalanced that I can't physically do it safely. If you go get me the lawn equipment, or let me go get the lawn equipment that I can use, I will gladly do it. And I see that sort of thing happening in reverse more often than in my case. Women will sit there and say, well, you're not doing this, or you're not doing this. Okay, but was that agreed upon? And have you given them the tools to be able to do that?
Yeah. And I think it goes back to if we properly communicate with each other.
Well, that's what it always comes down to. It comes back down to communication, because 90% of problems can be solved with communication.
Right.
But where women fail is that we have been taught all our lives, we've been gaslit by other women who have insisted that women are better at communication. I argue that we are actually horrible at communicating.
Yes.
We suck at it.
Yes.
We can communicate effectively amongst our peer groups, but even amongst other groups of women, we can't communicate effectively. And then we expect men to be able to understand us. Communication is 50-50. It's not just, you have to have the message that can be received.
I would argue it's 100-100 because you're 100% responsible for your communication.
Right, but if you fail to communicate correctly, it's two parts. You have what you say, and then you have how they interpret it or what they hear. And if you're communicating poorly and they keep not understanding you, then it's not their fault that they don't understand you. It's your fault for not communicating correctly.
Right.
For example, you would not tell someone who only speaks German, give them directions in English, and then get mad at them for why don't you understand me? It's not, but that's what women do. They'll communicate poorly, and then they'll sit there and say, they'll gaslight, and they'll use weaponized incompetence because they're doing the bare minimum of communication, and then say, well, it's your fault for not understanding me. Or is it your fault for not communicating effectively?
I would say that 99% of the time, it's the failure in communication or proper communication leads to the overall failure of whatever the shared goal is. I think that's true with anything. Okay, is there a failure to act? Yes. Okay. Was that communicated? What? Hold on.
Countryborn says, by the way, since we're talking about cats and not ducks, does that mean we're okay today? Yes, because we're not on TikTok.
Oh. Ah! There we go. I think. There it goes. Okay, so the failure to act, though, there's elements of communication there, but there's also the remembering, shouldn't I have been more thoughtful or more on it, more cognizant that I should have, paid attention? Wait a minute. We have these things called cell phones, right? Use them. They got calendars. They got alarms. They got reminders that you can set up on them. Use them. It's not the end of the world. You know what? You're human. You're not perfect. I mean, the minute we accept the fact that we're not perfect, we're never going to be. We're going to die a work in progress. Oh my. I mean, think about it. You hear the Alcoholics Anonymous or the Narcotics Anonymous, creed or promise or whatever you want to call it. They automatically go to, I am, I'm not perfect. I'm not capable of this. I've accepted that.
Well, I think that you have to use the tools that you are available with. So I have to tell you the penguin analogy. My husband loves this analogy. I don't remember where he came up with this, but he came up with this analogy. So the penguin analogy is your brain is an iceberg, and there's penguins on it. And each penguin is a memory or a piece of information that you need to know. And as you start to age, the iceberg shrinks, and penguins start falling off. Sometimes they just swim around until they jump back on the iceberg, but sometimes they get eaten by whales. Well, dolphins, orcas. And so I'll sit there and I'll tell him, I told you. He goes, that penguin fell off the iceberg. And I go, no, I think that penguin got eaten because it didn't at all. And you have to recognize that. And I did a video sort of on this when I said walk you through a day and sponsor day in the life of Mr. Squirrely. The things that my husband is required to remember on a daily basis far supersede in importance what I have to remember on a daily basis. I have to remember what we're eating for dinner. He has to remember fuel ratios for balancing between the wings of an aircraft that if you crash it, you can level a block. He's running, $1 billion simulator, and he's doing all of the stuff for incoming pilots and flight engineers. So he'll come home and he's like, what are we having for dinner? Or what did we have? Man doesn't even remember what he had for breakfast. But he has more schematics running through his head than I could ever understand. And rather than accuse my husband of weaponized incompetence, like I see so many women do, and then what do they always say is like, well, I shouldn't have to make a list. They don't have lists at his job. I'm like, have you seen my husband's TO? It's like this big. They have lists for everything. They have lists on how to make lists. So this idea that you're just supposed to know all these things, I think is a woman basically saying, I'm just going to expect you to do all of this so that I don't have to. I want to cede my part of the responsibility in communication and just assume that you need to remember all this stuff because I don't want to have to tell you again, or I don't want to remind you, or I want to give you my penguins.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the guy forgets because a penguin falls off the iceberg because she handed him all these other penguins who do not fit on his iceberg, and then her iceberg is blissfully clear or full of superficial penguins, she gets mad at him for, why didn't you remember that? I told you. Yes, Susan, you did. But while you're trying to remember if you took the clothes out of the dryer, he's trying to remember how to dig a ditch or how to do any number of, other jobs. And what I see is a lot of women who are trying to basically do the bare minimum and then gaslight the guy into thinking, oh, you're doing the bare minimum. I'm like, but wait a minute. You're at home more than he is. Well, I work too. Okay. You work in a comfortable, air-conditioned office.
Well, let's talk about that because we know that in my situation, the roles are reversed. And that's because I'm retired from the military, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm at home more than Jamie was. I also took on more, and I was trying to advance an agenda that doesn't really it's important, but it's probably not going to affect me personally, right? Because I don't see myself as having a problem attaining 50-50 shared parenting because she's not going to hold the kids from me. Nobody wants to spend thousands of dollars on attorneys, not in this situation. So it's kind of like, okay, so is that a fight I'm going to realistically be able to have? No. So were there times where I didn't make the cut as far as like my commitments at home? Sure. Is that fatal? That's the question. Is it fatal?
It shouldn't be, because women expect their husbands in any situation, whether he's that one at home or if he's the one working, they expect a certain amount of grace and compassion from the men if they slip up. Like if I forget to wash all of Mr. Squirrely's underwear, and he's never once gotten mad at me, like truly mad at me. He's just reminded me, hey, I need you to do laundry, and I do it. But women don't have that same grace with their male partners.
No.
If they drop the ball, if they're not perfect 100% of the time, and perfect is the enemy of good. So the one time they forget to do something, or the one time they don't do something, and then the woman uses that as an example of weaponized incompetence, or you're failing to carry your share of the mental load, or whatever new phrase they've come up with. And it's like, but you are ignoring all of the times that he did. And what if he did that same thing to you? What if he had that same energy for you? Because I see you dropping the ball way more than he does.
Mm-hmm. Right. So okay. So anyone who's been in therapy, I've been in therapy, you've been in therapy, millions of Americans have been in therapy. There's this word that gets thrown around a lot, especially when we're talking about interactions with other humans, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That is mindfulness. So the actual like practice of mindfulness on our parts, because we're only in control of ourselves. It begs the question, why is it that when we're talking about these really toxic relationships where we see women who are in feminist groups go on YouTube or social media and they're not practicing that same mindfulness, but they will shame a male because they're not. And a lot of times it's just that male doesn't have either the wherewithal, knowledge, or the experience to know what mindfulness really is.
So the way mindfulness was explained to me by a therapist is it's like driving. You have to be a conscientious, courteous driver. You have to be aware not only of your car, but the cars around you. Is cutting over a lane quickly illegal? No. But is it an asshole move to the car behind you that's going to have to slam on their brakes or swerve to miss you? Absolutely. Blocking driveways when you stop at a traffic light and pulling so far forward that people can't get into driveways. That's rude. That's practicing mindful driving. You have to be aware of not only your car, but the cars around you and the effect of moving your car has on the flow of traffic in general. I see a lot of bad women drivers who want everyone to be courteous to them, but are horribly incourteous to everybody else. And then we also have to remember that not everybody is driving the same car. When I had a little bitty sedan and I'm living here in Texas where everybody has a truck that is bigger than I am, I got changed lanes into a lot because the trucks are looking out eye level to the car to see if there's a car next to them. I'm next to them in my little silver invisible Ford, whatever it was. And they would try and change lanes into me. And then, oh my God, there's a car there. Well, their sight level is raised, or they have, the mirrors are out somewhere else. My car is smaller. And what you were saying about not everybody has the same experience. Well, what about mindfulness? A brand new driver has less mindfulness in the road than a seasoned driver.
Mm-hmm.
The big rig drivers have to have far more mindfulness.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Than the other cars. That was how it was explained to me. And that makes perfect sense. And I used this analogy on a feminist the other day, and I swear to God, her eyes crossed. I didn't see her eyes crossed, but I could, the time period in which there were a gap between her last reply and her new reply was like, okay, I see your point. And I'm like, yes! Because you expect the men to be mindful of how they're communicating. And I have this problem too sometimes because I'm on the spectrum. Sometimes I am far more blunt in a almost dismissive, patronizing or condescending way that I mean to. I am not intending to come off that way, but I do sometimes. And I have to be told, my husband will say, I don't like the way you just said that to me. And I'll be like, what did I say? Because I literally don't know. I can't always hear how I sound to other people.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm called out on it, I don't get mad.
No, you shouldn't. And the other part of this is so this is another interesting like segue into if we're going to talk about interactions with spouses. My spouse told me something similar, and I was just trying to understand, is it the tone and tenor? Yeah, it's your tone and tenor. Okay, can you recreate it for me? I want to understand this. And there was a part of the conversation that kind of led into, well, I don't have to tell you I don't have to explain to you what makes me upset with this. And I was like,
you kind of do.
I was kind of like, I don't think that's necessarily what your therapist intended to teach you. And I don't necessarily think that that's necessarily pertinent to what or conducive to you trying to build on things, but whatever, fine. The things that stick out in my mind are communication is key to everything that we do, every relationship that we have. I just find it interesting that I can have all of these great relationships with all of these wonderful people, but yet this one person that lives in my house, I always seem to like have this horrible experience with. Get out. I don't care. Get out. Get out.
It's not me parenting today.
Well, he was starting to tear up and I was about ready to go. But again, it's like this thing where you go, okay, the communication here is important. Like, if I'm failing to perform, tell me I'm failing to perform.
So that you can fix it.
Right. How am I failing? If I'm not seeing a subtle nuance or a variable that I'm missing, I want to know. It's just really difficult sometimes to understand. Also, here's another component. I'm 6'4". I'm a big dude. I also have this big booming voice when I yell at the kids. I mean, I can be intimidating to a person. So it's like, how do you want me to relate to you if you're not telling me? And, I almost wonder if it's not years of programming that's getting like in the way, because I'm just trying to understand. Just tell me what the hell the issue is. Stop like dancing around the bush. You're always so like, I don't know. But yet you do.
So something that I've run into is that I shouldn't have to explain why it's upsetting. Yes, you should. Yes, the fuck you should. Because if I'm upsetting you, I want to know what I'm saying and how I'm saying it that is causing this reaction. Because if every time I speak, you're shutting down because we're trying to work through a problem, and you're shutting down because you don't like my tone or what I'm saying, you have to communicate with that to me, and I can find a different way to say it, so that we can communicate effectively.
Right.
And a lot of the times, and then on the other hand, I see a lot of people, especially when it's a very personal relationship, is they are projecting what they think you're saying onto what you're actually saying.
Right.
So my mother used to do this to me all the time, where I would say something. She's like, that's dismissive. And I'm like, I didn't mean to be dismissive. Was I being dismissive? And then I would look around and would even ask my dad, Dad, was I being dismissive? He goes, no, your mother's just crazy. She was projecting her own feelings onto what I was saying, and not what I was saying, or not the way I was saying it. Or I didn't mean it like that. And someone else will hear me say the exact same thing at the exact same time. They could even be standing next to the person when I said it.
Right.
The person that I said it to is deeply offended. The other person that was standing there, the witness, doesn't think that I said anything bad. It's the person who is receiving the whatever communication is already made up their mind to be offended. And I will argue for the long, and I'm trying to teach this to my child at the moment, that being offended is typically a choice.
Yes.
In order to, I say this to the women who call me horrible names online all the time. It's like, you can call me every name in the book. In order to offend me, I must first care about your opinion, and I don't.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can say whatever you want to me, and I'm not going to get upset because I don't value your opinion enough to be upset.
Right.
So the choice to be offended is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And now sometimes it is, like when I said that, I said something the other day, and my husband said, I don't like the way you said that. And he told me how it made him feel. And I acknowledged that I probably misstepped. But the other half of that is there are a lot of women out there who are choosing to be offended by what their husbands or boyfriends are saying. They're choosing to be upset because they don't want to hear the criticism. They don't want to hear that they might be not the whole problem, but part of the problem. And rather than admit their culpability.
You can clearly see this going on in the chat between Houston and Country because they're both saying the same damn thing 100%. She wants you to mind read, and she didn't like the message. Right. She doesn't want to be wrong. That's 100% right, Houston. If you don't tell someone how they're upset by an action of yours, how can the problem ever get solved? Country is 100% right there as well. Here's okay. So is how we say something important? Yes. If we don't communicate how you said something, if I don't tell you, Lindsay, that I don't like how you said that, that made me feel, then we're not going to have a very productive relationship as friends, as brother and sister, as anything, right? So the moral of the story, let's take this one to extremes. So in September of 2018, Jamie and I lost a child. And the OBGYN told her, well, we want you to have a D&C, which is a procedure where you go in, you cut up the baby, and then you extract it. It's a very violent procedure. Okay, so the question was, do we get to bury? Okay. They said, no, we're not allowed to give you the products of conception. Okay. So if you know my wife, you know that she's a Democrat. You know she leans left. But that's her baby. She stopped the OBGYN and told her, that is not products of conception, that's my baby. Okay. How you say it is important. She took the time to tell that damn OBGYN, you need to be more sensitive to this than the way you're being right fucking now. Why the fuck can't you tell me that? Why can't 100 million women out there in the United States, look at all the women in Canada, Australia, all the Western world. Why can't you just say that to your men?
I am the wrong person to ask.
Right?
Because I've been asking this. So I had this, I always had, and I my mother is deceased now, but we had the worst communication when I was a teenager because I was blunt, because I'm autistic, mm-hmm. Never got tested. She said, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. There's lots of things wrong with me, by the way. That's why I have such a good sense of humor. But how I communicated, I could communicate very well with my dad. I can communicate very well with my teachers, with my peer group, everyone, my coworkers. I could not communicate worth a damn with my mother. And it's like, so I would try and change how I was saying it, how, reword it, do all this, nothing. And at some point, yes, what you say and how you say it matters. But the person has to be willing to listen. And we see in a lot of cases, we see they have already discredited the source. So they're not going to listen to a thing the source says. They're not hearing the words that are out of your mouth. Well, you need to say what you need to say it differently. Okay. And then you say it differently and they still get mad. We see it in political discourse all the time. And I've used arguments for both sides. I'll be arguing with the one side. And I had this argument with, we're not on TikTok, I can talk about this. I had this argument with this woman who truly believed that consent to sex is not consent to pregnancy. But in the same breath, she said ejaculation is consent to parenthood. I go, now wait a minute. The two can't not be true, simultaneously true.
It's kind of like, okay, so it's kind of like mind-blowing here because so you're consenting to the pleasure part of it, but you're not consenting to the responsibility part of it.
Her whole argument was that men should control where they leave their genetic material. So I said, okay, well, who let them leave the genetic material there to the first place? Because women are the gatekeepers of sex. If you let him in without a condom, that's on you. If you pull someone into your house with muddy shoes, you do not get to then yell at them and say, you left mud on my floors. And I tried everything to talk to because we were talking about how she kept insisting that men have choices in reproduction. And I was like, no, they don't. Not to the same degree that women do. And they kept saying, well, if men don't want to be parents, they shouldn't ejaculate. And I was like, okay, well, you had a right to swallow. But I mean, here we are. We're not on TikTok.
Or to be swallowed.
You could bend over and show them your anus too. I mean, there's lots of options that you have. But you let him in to your sacred space. You did the invitation. And if you and if you're going to argue that consent to sex is not consent to pregnancy, then you cannot simultaneously say ejaculation is consent to parenthood. You can't.
No.
You can't.
No.
But no amount of changing my wording, no amount of me using her own words and her own argument and her own side's argument back to her, she was not willing to listen to anything that I said. And 116 comments later, we were still back to, if he ejaculates, he consent to parenthood. So then I twisted it on her. I said, okay, well, what about Hermanson versus Sayer? What about that? And she came and told me that the 13-year-old boy apparently consented to the act. And that's about when I said, I'm done with you.
So I can't help but think about this in a very different way. So the choice to drive on today's roads is consent to accept the risk and responsibility that you might be involved in a fatal crash.
With all precautions taken, yes.
Yes.
Sex is about the same thing.
Right. And you might encounter someone who doesn't have insurance, and you might be 100% responsible for the thing, or your insurance would be 100% responsible. And then there by the other 3 to 5 year responsibility of higher interest or insurance rates. There's a level of control you don't have that the actuarial sciences and the law are going to dictate that you have no control over. Sorry, not sorry. I mean, the logic doesn't compute.
So when I was trying and obviously failing to communicate with this woman, I tried everything to try and get to her, including using her side's own argument of consent to sex is not a consent to pregnancy. So if you're going to, she goes, yes, I agree. And I go, okay, we've established that you think that consent to sex is not consent to pregnancy. So how can you say in the same breath that ejaculation is consent to parenthood. Oh, because men had a choice. What choice is that? Do we not know how the male orgasm works? Because I'm starting to think you don't. But not only that, we're still back to you let them in. So like there's this, and what it came down to is she didn't want to accept any of the female responsibility. What it came down to is that she was honestly, truly believed that pregnancy is just something that happens to women and that we have absolutely no control over whether it happens or not. And we're just, these poor little lambs, and men inflict this thing onto them and we have no control over it. And I was like, well, that is anti-feminist because you just called us dumb. You just basically likened women to children who things just happened to me and I don't understand what happened. Oh my God, you don't deserve a uterus. Please take it out. But learning through this conversation is I tried to change my tone. I tried to change my argument. I tried to change the words that I was trying to use to try and reach this person. But at that point, she had decided that she just wasn't open to communicating with me. And rather than tell me that, we went round and round for 3 days.
Country, it's entirely possible. Now, Houston and Steve, I got to say, this isn't always got to be doom and gloom. I think the hope here is we can turn stuff around. Good Lord. And that's
Yes.
100% correct, Steve. Play stupid games, win stupid
prizes.
Yes.
But I've been using at least in this argument, the pregnancy argument, when it comes to abortion and all of that,
Mm-hmm.
I will often use the driving analogy. And I always get told, well, that's insensitive because you're likening women to cars. And I go, actually, I think it's an insult to cars to liken them to women because cars are far easier to figure out than women. They come with a manual. They come with a manual.
They do. And what's funny is they don't talk back.
They don't either. Well, some of them do. My car talks back. If I get too close to someone, it beeps at me going, what is it? Collision imminent. And I'm like, I know how much clearing distance I have. I've watched NASCAR. You only need 8 inches of clearance. No, but it is, and the people. So the driving analogy, even with all, is a wonderful analogy because it's accurately comparable. Even with all precautions taken, if you get in a car, you are consenting to the possibility of an accident every time you choose to drive. Every time. And the same thing is when you're choosing to have sex. The problem that we have with a lot of women or people that are on the other side of the argument is that they decide that they are not going to communicate. They're choosing not to hear what we're saying because they have decided they don't like the analogy.
Yeah.
And then they tell us, you're not communicating well enough. I go, no, I would argue that you're weaponizing incompetence by choosing not to hear. You have already blocked, you've put stuffed cotton into your ears. You've decided you're not going to listen. And now you're accusing us of failure to communicate. I would argue that we're not failing to communicate. You're failing to listen effectively.
Yes, and that's still a failure in communication, though.
True. So in that case, you just really can't communicate with those people. You're just basically speaking 2 different languages. But it's still a failure of communication. You are correct. I'm reading comments. That's a good one. Let's see. We're not on TikTok. I can actually bring out all my good jokes. I should tell a really bad joke. Okay, I have 2 of them. Ready? Are we ready?
Mm-hmm.
I could never get away with saying these on TikTok. Why are women's feet smaller than men's? So they can stand closer to the sink. Well, why does the bride wear white? Because the dishwasher has to match the rest of the appliances.
Oh Lord!
But back to communication. When the whole weaponized incompetence thing that sort of kind of we got started on. But so, like I said, a lot of the times when I hear women use well, he's doing the bare minimum, or he's weaponizing his incompetence, or he's choosing to be. It was like, no, there's two things that could be going on. It's one, you have failed to communicate correctly. Or communicated at all, because what is the line that I always hear women say that I absolutely loathe? Well, if you don't know, I'm not going to tell you. Bitch, how's he supposed to know if you won't tell him? And like, he can't read your mind. I can't read your mind either. And that infuriates me. We'll be up at like the bus stop and it's all moms, right? And we're waiting for our kids to get on the bus, and they're all out in yoga pants they shouldn't be wearing. Okay, if your yoga pants, PSA ladies, if your yoga pants are so thin that I can see every dimple of cellulite, those aren't pants, those are tights. I need to go put clothes on. But Mr. Squirrel's home. What was I saying?
Tights and yoga pants.
Oh, so we'll be up there at the bus stop,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll be complaining about how, well, he didn't know, so I wasn't going to tell him. And then they'll turn to me like they expect me to agree with them. And I'm like, why didn't you tell him? And you see the look on all the women's faces like, wait, she broke. No, you're supposed to agree with us. What good is me agreeing with you going to do? Because all I'm doing is hurting you. Do you want me to respond like a woman on the internet where I just tell you whatever you want to hear? Yes, queen. Or do you want me to respond like a big sister and tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear?
Isn't it funny? Like, okay, so I tell that to my friends, like my real true friends a lot, is if I want to take it easy on you, I tell you what you want to hear. If I'm going to be your friend, I'm going to tell you what you need to hear. And it doesn't make my life easy because I have to contend with you afterwards.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I get accused of hating women all the time. Big surprise. And I argue every time that I actually don't hate women. I actually want women to succeed. And part of wanting women to succeed is to care about them enough to tell them when they're exhibiting behaviors that are detrimental to their success. The same thing you do with your children. Your job as a parent is to make them a functioning adult. Coddling them and letting them sit in their fifis and never telling them anything that no criticism or is not going to help you grow. If you work out, you know that if you sit comfortable and in sedative position, nothing's going to change. I mean, your waistline will, but not in the way you want to. If you want to get stronger, you have to be uncomfortable. If you want to grow, you have to be uncomfortable.
No pain, no gain.
If you want to be a good person, you have to be willing to be uncomfortable correctly when you do something that makes someone uncomfortable and someone calls you out on it. And so I get accused all the time of hating women because I tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. I'm like, look, I would argue that the people who only ever tell you what you want to hear, to coddle you, to basically pacify you, are not your friends, because they are allowing you to do things that are detrimental to your well-being overall. So when I hear that stupid phrase, if I don't know, I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to agree, because can you imagine that on reverse? Can you imagine, back to the list thing, he sends you to the hardware store and you come back with screws, but they're the wrong kind. And she's like, well, what was I supposed to do? Well, if you don't know, I'm not going to tell you. Do you know how mad women would get?
They would lose their minds. They would implode, and then they would explode. It's funny because I wrote a Facebook post on July 14th about this topic, and it was suffering is something that teaches us much about ourselves. It gives us the perspective that we need to see about our true state, how weak and feeble we really are. It forces us to be brutally honest with ourselves. We aren't able to hide behind the facade of lies. Only after we have felt our losses, only after we have suffered that great pain, can we truly have salvation. We spend so much time hiding who we really are from others. I'm an imperfect man who is but a mere mortal. I will one day die. I will die a work in progress. I am filled with the sins of my heart, mind, and actions. Always, always own those sins. Carl Jung has said that we can only achieve true Zen only after we embraced all of our parts, good and evil. We choose who we are as a person. I have made bad decisions. I have made good decisions. There are folks out there who have not made the right decision yet, but I try to look at them with empathy and understanding. I plan to suffer, for it is the path to salvation. Tell Mr. Squirrely he needs to leave his pants on. There it is.
No, but I mean, you're right. Everything you said was right. And you have to be willing to. So women want, like, in general, women want grace for themselves when they drop the ball, but they're not willing to extend that same grace to the men in their lives. They'll extend it to other women.
They'll even extend it to their kids, male or female. It's their young that they'll extend it to as well.
Past a certain age, up to a certain age, yes. Because I've seen women who will bend over backwards to make it not their kid's fault until their like male child hits 15 or 16, and then suddenly they treat them with the same contempt that they do their father. And I'm like, well, you just made a whole bunch of excuses. 2 days ago, you were making excuses for him, and now you're not. What have you taught him? And oh
my gosh, country asked. That's to me. That's impeccable. I fail all the time, and the only thing, hang on.
I fail all the time. The only thing I fear about death is not seeing what my life meant. In other words, what did my time on earth change for the better?
Right. So to me, I look at that and I go, Randy Travis wrote a song about it. Think about it. There were 4 people there. And why were there only 3 crosses on the side of the road? Preacher, a teacher, and a farmer. And the preacher gave his mother, the whore, this Bible. And that's what he held up, that blood-stained Bible. And I look at that and I go, you're going to leave a legacy. I mean, we talk about King Solomon. He had all the riches in the world, couldn't take the shit with him.
Well, look at the pharaohs in Egypt. They definitely couldn't take that shit with them because we're still finding it all over the place.
But the legacy that we leave behind, the lessons that we leave in the hearts of our children, of other children, of the thousands of humans that we touch with our lives, that's what we leave behind. That's the legacy.
Which means you should be communicating effectively, because otherwise you're going to be the story. You're going to be the story that
he just brought her around full circle.
Because if you aren't communicating effectively, and your legacy behind is you're the story that the retail workers tell in the back of the store for years. I mean, how many stupid Reddit posts have you found, or Tumblr when it was a thing, of stupid people, legacy stupid, that are like, back in World War II, back in my day, if Dan were here, he's not quite that old, but if you fail to communicate, so that's another thing you're talking about, legacy and failing to communicate properly. The people who did not fail to communicate properly, in some cases, their legacy still exists to this day because words endure.
Oh, yes. If you haven't shown us love yet, please give us some love. Hit that heart, hit the like button, whatever. We really love the likes. We really love the hearts. Thank you, country, for remembering for where we failed.
Yes, thank you. Apparently,
because we failed to communicate.
We failed to communicate. Oops. I'll take the blame. Everyone out there, it's my fault. I was the problem.
Around here, we love problems, so it's good.
Well, every problem is an opportunity.
It
That's
is.
what I tell my children.
It is.
I actually, and my husband does not understand this. When I do my historical sewing projects or my sewing projects in general, I'll be sitting there screaming at my sewing machine. God damn it, this isn't working. What the fuck is wrong with this thing? And Eric's like, why don't you just stop? I go, no, because every time I have one of these problematic projects, I learn something. If everything went well all the time, I would never learn anything.
Yeah.
Or you sometimes have to think outside the box. Like when I make historical corsets, synthetic whalebone is ridiculously expensive.
Really?
Yes, because Joann's and all the other sewing stores that are around here are all closed. You can't go to a costume store to find, fabric or anything, or sewing supplies. You have to order it all online. And to get good quality synthetic whalebone is ridiculously expensive. Do you know what is basically the exact same material at a fraction of the cost? Giant ass zip ties. So I had to get creative when I was making a historically accurate 18th century corset. I went to the hardware store and I bought giant zip ties. They're about this big and about 3 feet long, cable ties. And then I bought a whole bunch of just normal zip ties. And they function the exact same. If you warm them up, they warm up with the body heat, and they do the exact same as actual synthetic whalebone. And instead of my sewing project costing $600, I made it out of recycled sheets that I bought at the thrift store for like $2, and then $5 worth of zip ties.
Moby Dick.
Yay me.
Zip ties. Look at Houston. That reminds me of a little story. When we were in Iraq, there was this Southern boy. He was a PFC, private first class. And I was 20 at the time, and he probably was like 18 or 19. And he was sitting there talking to my platoon sergeant at the time, and he was like, you know how many zip strips it takes to tie up and hog tie one of those EPW SAR? 3 zip strips. And I was like, oh my. So when you said that, I was like, that's where my mind went. I remember that story. I was there in 2003, 2004. Houston. So it was turned 21.
But I don't need it.
Ago.
I need a 3D printer. If I had a 3D printer, Steve, I would not be printing zip ties. I would be printing things that are inappropriate. And mailing them to people I don't like.
Okay. So have you ever seen those glitter bombs that come from dicksbymail.com?
Yes.
Okay. I've been sent 3 of them in my lifetime because people love me, right? So I know what came in. I recognized it right off the bat. I left it on the table and I said to Jamie, do not touch that. Don't open it. Do nothing. She's like, what is it? It's not what you think it is. It's not anything that's pleasant. Okay. I go out to the garden because I'm doing harvest time. It's August. So they come in these poster tubes and they're compressed. They compress them with air. She opened it. And all you heard from the house was, God damn it, motherfucker. And I was like, I come in and I said, I told you not to open it. You didn't listen now, did you? I had no idea. And I was like,
why did you touch it?
I did. Don't do it. So she had to clean up.
Oh, I hate glitter.
Way.
Glitter is evil. So when I used to work retail, I would get covered in glitter because sometimes, for some reason, every holiday that you have requires glitter. And I'd be hanging all of the signs up in the home department and whatnot, and I would come home drenched in glitter. And to this day, I have a pair of shoes that still have like 3 or 4 specks of glitter on them that just won't leave. And I haven't worked at that store for years. Glitter is evil. But my favorite story of something like glitter, which we've kind of sort of gotten off topic, but that's okay. Have you ever seen a classified paper shredder?
Oh,
you
yes,
you
yes,
shred
yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
classified
Yeah.
documents.
Mm-hmm.
It was very.
They're
It
like
was.
an eighth of an inch by eighth of an inch.
It was very, very hot one day, and someone had this really fancy car that they were very proud of. Well, they left it unlocked. So one of my husband's squad mates went and stuffed a whole bunch of the paper from the classified shredder into the AC, so that when they cranked it to full blast.
So someone had an expensive car, which told me it was either a single young like airman.
It's a single young airman with too much money and no sense.
No, too much credit and no sense.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Those machines are so. What's funny is so we had this one LT. He was a dumpster diver, and so in military intelligence, these guys. What they were looking for was like, hey, are you throwing away classified materials that you're not supposed to be? They would go dumpster diving for them, and they were really good at finding it. Really talented. So I got to give it to them. Do you use the barrel of water under the output of the shredder? No. We burned it. Yep. We had a furnace.
We didn't have a furnace, not at Tinker.
Yeah, we had to burn it. They wanted it burned. It was pretty hot too. I think it could get up to 3,000 degrees.
Well, I mean, technically speaking, Eric is supposed to destroy his the old pages that come out of his TO that he has to update.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't. I'm floating in manuals that have nothing to do with the aircraft that he's on at all. We should probably just burn them in our backyard fire pit.
I mean, then the evidence wouldn't exist now, would it?
Evidence? What evidence?
It's kind of like the reels you see. So, do you have any guns? What guns? They sank in an accident in the middle of the lake.
I like the one that says my pew-pews don't identify as pew-pews. They identify as cordless hole punchers. They self-identify as cordless hole punchers. What is the guy? There's a guy on YouTube. Huh. Interesting. But I think we've I can't talk today.
we
have exceeded our topic. So guys, we need things to talk about. Without Dan here, we can't carry the whole conversation.
Dan's gonna have a full conversation for us next week, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Well, he did say there might be a repeat event or a repeat appointment next week too, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he did. It might be us again. We're gonna have to come up with this time. When I come up with a topic, I'm gonna hit send, even if I'm not done talking.
Because I was sitting there going, I still haven't received anything, and you said last week. What are we doing? I think, let's talk about communication overall in general.
Okay.
Overall in general, people aren't very good at communicating, period. But I think if you want to have meaningful communication, I think it's important to do as you say you're going to do. And, oh my God, Houston, no. So if you tell someone you're going to do something, I think it's important that you do it,
Yeah.
because that's a big part of relationship building. Generations today, young people today, that's something that they do not, they don't do. And it's kind of upsetting,
Well, they communicate or say they're going to do something and they don't. And then that in itself isn't that a failure of communication, because now you have taken away the value behind the words. So the words themselves don't mean even what you say they mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's kind of like our money system when we got rid of the gold standard. But if you say you're going to do something in a relationship and then you don't back it up and actually do what you say you're going to do, then the next time you try and communicate, well, I'm going to do this, the person's going to be like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Right. And that's something it's interesting, because people ask me how I have so much success with legislators. I just walk in, talk to them about their issues. What are you trying to advance? Because I want my agenda advanced. What can I do to help you advance yours? And then they go, well, I need this done. And okay, what would help advance that? And they go, well, if I had data on this, or this. Okay. Can you give me a little bit of time? I'll get the data and we'll see if we can't get an argument and data put together. And then I walk in 2 days later with a work product that they look at and they look at me cross-eyed like I'm a three-headed monster, and they have no idea what the hell I did. And they're like dumbfounded. No one's ever done that for me before. What? What?
Well, that's what they say, is talk is cheap, right? Because you can say whatever you want, but I would still argue that, at least in the terms of, especially with relationships, interpersonal of any kind, if you don't back up, or if your words mean nothing, words are wind. And so if you don't back up your words with actual actions, then you have failed to communicate twice.
Yes.
Because actions do speak louder than words, and actions themselves are a form of dun 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 communication. It's called body language. But specifically in relationships, we were talking about how women will sometimes say, you're not doing your fair share, because they either don't see what he's doing, or in some cases, and my husband and I did this because I was not seeing what he was doing and he was not seeing what I was doing. So everything that I did in a day, I wrote down so that my actions had a word associated with them. Everything he did in a day, he wrote down. Turns out we were doing a lot more than the other person was seeing. Especially when we had kids, and he would come home and he's like, "What did you do all day?" I was like, "Your children are alive. Say thank you and tell me I'm pretty," because I have cleaned up the same 5 Legos. But I think in many cases, women's particularly, they're able to conceptualize what they do in a given day and have the corresponding word match like a picture in their brain or something, but they can't conceptualize what men are doing in a given day.
Right.
In contribution to the household. And I had this conversation with someone else about nurture and care. How we're talking about how, well, if he didn't step up as a father before the divorce, what makes you think he's going to step up as a father after? And I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? Well, I did this. I made all the appointments and whatnot. And I was like, okay, because he was working. Okay, you only see nurturing or childcare if it looks mother-shaped. If it looks father-shaped, it's invisible. But all that financial childcare is a pretty big deal, because you can't buy school supplies, school clothes, shoes, makeup. You can't pay the bill. You can't do any of that if he's not doing his side of the care. But you only see the female shaped care.
Well, what's funny is August. Would it have been August? Would have been July or August 2023. Spent 3 days in the VA hospital. And Jamie was responsible exclusively for the kids, everything, all of it on her own. And she was also responsible for working full time at her job, too. And I couldn't leave. I had a nasty leg infection. It had gone up from the bottom of my foot all the way up my leg in a course of about 8 hours. So I had to be on IV antibiotics and hospitalized, and they had to bring in the podiatrist to cut away all the dead tissue, and it was just a whole ordeal, right? And I get home after being there for 3 days, and the house is in such a disarray that it was kind of like vindicating for like a half a hot second, because it was kind of like, okay, now you do see that I do shit. But it's quickly, it's amazing to me how quickly that's forgotten. So it's kind of like, okay, what is this? Because the laundry chute was completely plugged. You had 10 loads of laundry. Like, all of a sudden, my 2 washers and 2 dryers are working overtime, and I gotta go in and unclog the laundry chute that you got clogged. It's just, there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into it. There's all these factors that people don't realize the other person's really contributing more than what you see.
And then when they try and communicate, this is what I'm contributing, in many cases, women will especially the women will shut the men down. Well, that's the bare minimum, or you're not doing enough. And it's like, first of all, it's not a competition.
How do you even know?
How do you know? First of all, it's not a competition. You should be competing together. You're on the same team. You're running a household together. Right. And it becomes well, whose day was worth, or my horse was big, my horse is bigger than your horse. You're comparing horses' teeth, and it's not conducive to running a household. Not well. The two people running the household should not be in competition with each other. They should be on the same team.
Right. Here's another thing that would irritate me. Okay, you didn't do this. No, but I did all of this. I get no thanks. No, instead I get bitched at because this didn't get done. And I'm like, this was the one thing I asked you to do. Okay, but those 10 other things that did get done needed to get done. So what are we doing here?
So that's another thing that I see women do.
There's another scorekeeping moment.
There's another thing that I see women do that I've always been able to tell that we do this, but I've never been able to articulate it until recently. Just because you tell someone, I need you to do this, and the other person hears you, okay, that is not them agreeing to do it. That is saying, I heard you.
Correct.
But I'm not necessarily agreeing to do it.
If I get to it, I'll get to it. If I don't get the opportunity, I'm like.
If you list out all this, so my mother used to do this, and I've seen other women do it too. They're like, well, I need you to do this, 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 and this. And he'll say, okay. And then won't do any of it. He's like, I told you to do this. Yes, you did. You did tell him to do that. But did he agree that he was going to? Because there's a difference between talking at someone and communicating with someone. And like, if he has, like, say you need to do all these things on the weekend. And I was talking to a woman the other day about this, and because we were all at the pool, and she was saying, well, my husband only has 1 day off a week, and I need him to do all this stuff. I was like, wait a minute, already stop. Your husband has 1 day off a week, and you have decided that is the day you're going to get all this shit done. Have you ever considered that he might just want to, I don't know, play video games, watch TV, relax? Well, I need him to do all this stuff. What do you need him to do? And they listed all this stuff. Said, okay, none of that is stuff you can't do. So why can't you let him relax? Well, because it needs to get done, and I didn't do it on my days off. Why not? You were allowed your day off and didn't do anything. But he's not allowed to have his day off and not do anything. Where's the fairness? Where is the equality in that?
There isn't. I'm like, there would be times in the military where I'd go 7 days straight.
Well, yeah, Mr. Squirrely's in the middle of a dirty dozen right now because we're coming up on the first weekend of the month. So he works a week on his civilian job. He goes to the reserves for the weekend, and then he works another week in the civilian job. So he's on, working 12 days straight.
Right. And then
I won't be asking him to do anything.
Well, and here's another thing that you run into too, because the Air Reserve and the Air Guard is notorious for this. And that is, sometimes they'll do a damn you to 8 drill, which is a pain in the ass because they'll spend 4 days flying to someplace overseas and then flying back the entire time. And that would drive me nuts. Oftentimes we would only do like MUTA 4s or MUTA 5s, which is a MUTA 5 is Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. MUTA 4 is Saturday, Sunday. And, a lot of people don't understand that, well, reserve components, they get paid 2 days. Well, listen, that's part of the thing, but also realize a lot of times they don't get released every time at night. Sometimes they're forcing them to stay over just so they can get the extra work productivity. So
yeah, and sometimes it's generally 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. Well,
correct.
sometimes funding doesn't come through, and when they finally do have the funding, they have to cram those 2 weeks all in the same time. All last minute, or they have to cram a whole bunch of training in when they have everybody on base because it's a reserve weekends. So your normal commanders are on their real job.
Well, that, or my favorite is they're cramming all of the reserve component units into the post while having the active duty units do their duty weekend. And it's like, are you serious? Like, what?
So so when my husband comes to me, he goes, I'm starting the dirty dozen. I know. So it's like, okay, I gotta get the lawn mowed, and I need you to help me start the lawnmower. I need to do all this stuff so that you don't have to do anything, or he doesn't have to do anything, because he's going to be working straight. It also means that when he comes home, he gets to sit on that nice, lovely chair that y'all can't see off screen, and I really don't make him do anything.
That he's sucking on the pickle?
He'd have to remove ribs for that. I suck on the pickle.
I was talking about the real pickle, not the... Okay.
One time at band camp.
And you play the flute too.
I don't play the flute, but I do play 9 different instruments. You know what that means? I have a talented tongue.
Where's HR when we need them?
You are HR.
Good Lord.
I'm surprised I haven't generated any comments in the section for that. Houston would normally be all over that. They stopped listening.
Steve chimed in. Did you see Steve? He's
no,
laughing.
Not yet.
Lindsay's mind never left the gutter. That's accurate.
No, I live here.
Yeah.
Like a feral raccoon.
I think for me, I think it's important, regardless of the type of relationship we're going to have, whether you're having a romantic one, whether you have a friendship one, whether it's familial, whether it's professional, I think the communication is key. I think doing what you say you're going to do is essential. And I think putting in the effort and the work and taking the time to put great care into the other person demonstrates that you're willing to learn about them, know them. They're important to you, and your guys' shared goals are important together. And I think without that, Houston, HR is TikTok.
Which we're not using.
Oh, the love. So, but you get what I'm saying.
Well, if the two people who are running the relationship or running the household are supposed to be on the same team,
Mm-hmm.
and communication is key, you have to be able to talk to your teammates, then you should want to communicate effectively with your teammate so that they can help you in turn. And so when women fail to communicate, or they break down and say, well, you know, they use the phrase I hate, which is, he doesn't know and I'm not going to tell him, or you should just know. Okay, well.
Oh my God, I hate that one.
Okay.
How many times have I been told that? You should just know.
Know what?
Like, when was this a thing? Like, I go, when did you tell me? I have friends that tell me I have a mind like a steel trap. And I never remember being told, these are the guidelines. These are the things you have to remember. Never. Didn't even come with a goddamn instruction manual. And I'm supposed to be
unlike a car,
out of my ass and tell you it doesn't work that way.
Or when the instructions are rules for thee but not for me. Like, oh well, my husband has to do this, this, and this. We said, okay, well, why don't you have to do this? Because they're more what we call guidelines than actual rules. And it's like, who decided that? Does he know that? Or is that only for you? Because again, that's a failure to communicate. Like, well, he should just know that he was allowed to fudge this one time. Okay, but you made it like a hard line in the sand, like the damn line in front of the Alamo. You drew the line, you know, you said it was a hard line, and like you filled it with concrete and around the whole moat, like freaking trimmers when you ran the graboid into Bert's property. Like, that was a whole hard line. When did you tell him that it was sometimes flexible? Well, he should just guess. He should just guess, or he should just read your mind.
All of which are fatal. Fatal to their argument.
Fatal to your argument, and if you build them up over time, if you continue to have miscommunications and failures to communicate, it is fatal to your relationship. And friendships, by the way, any relationship can be broken, by bad communication. Relationships between parents and children, relationships between teachers and students. I had a teacher back, years ago, who could not communicate with me to save life. He couldn't communicate with lots of his students. And then
Right.
when the students weren't understanding, it was our fault. I was like, have you maybe ever considered that you explained this horribly?
So, okay, I'm gonna go into this with the last 2 minutes. The researchers did studies with mice, and every time that a mouse hit a button, it dropped a pebble for them to eat. Okay, they did a study again where they hit the button, and every couple times it hit the button, it would drop a pebble to eat. Okay, so they did another study. Every time that they hit the thing, nothing dropped. Then they did another study where it was intermittent and there was no rhyme or reason. There was no pattern, no nothing. Holy cow. These mice went insane. Their behavior was erratic, chaotic. It was like mass chaos and anarchy. You know what the researchers concluded? When there was no rhyme or reason and there was no rationale to how the food was awarded, that's when everyone got sideways. So when there was no reasonable expectations and everything was arbitrary and unilateral and there was no nothing, there was nothing to be able to control it, it caused mass chaos.
And we are out of time, guys. And guess what? He's right. No rhyme or reason, no explanation, or whatever. That's when people get frustrated, and that's what kills relationships. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed Kurtis and I and my horrible mouth because I was the problem today.
That was the problem.
And yes, I'm always the problem. I need a shirt that says that. We will see you guys next week. Dan may or may not be with us, depending on how his tooth problems go. Last parting thing for you all to think about. Have you ever considered that the Tooth Fairy is just a lesser known, smaller version of his cousin, the Bone Fairy? How much money would I get if I put a femur under my pillow asking for a friend?
Okay, on that one, I think we're going to end.
Bye, guys.
Bye.